Now, the bandwagon, as they say, was getting heavy. Everyone started to jump on the bandwagon again.
Portland is not in a position to try to come back, and he should just kind of leave that alone.
Stop being satisfied with mediocre performances.
I don't like it. Plain and simple, I really don't like it. An all-star game just shows how much they just kind of continue to placate the players and their lackadaisical efforts on the court.
You really sparked my interest, and I'm sure that of many others. Alistair Albert, thank you very much.
Hello and welcome back to Baseline with Alistair and Orane with our 2026 return. We're here on episode 9. Alistair Albert here, host and co-host Orane Buchanan as usual. We here, like I said, returning for 2026. We had the Christmas break. We had episode 8, which was really good and everything, where we spoke a little bit about the NBA Cup, what we thought about that, the Spurs and the Knicks, how that kind of goes on. You had an awesome line. I think that was the line of the season so far in terms of disrespecting raving about a butterfly and disrespecting a caterpillar when it came to Steve. Yeah. I thought that was really good. And, just kind of talking about, of course, where we were at this point in the season up to the Christmas break and the games that we were looking forward to for Christmas. Of course, we're here now. We're off the Christmas break, and we know once the calendar flips to the new year, it's just full steam ahead towards the playoffs, basically. And the teams are, of course, gearing up to that. And with that, of course, comes potential trades for teams wanting to assess how they've been for the first quarter of the season and making decisions on whether or not the rosters kind of fit and everything else. And with that, over the last couple of days, we had the first major trade of the season where Trae Young, point guard of the Atlanta Hawks, was traded to the Washington Wizards for CJ McCollum and Corey Kispert. And of course, I think we touched on him a little bit at one of the episodes earlier on in the season, where we were saying that, he was a bit at loggerheads with the team, where they were trying to discuss an extension, but Atlanta was just not ready to do that yet. They wanted to see what the team would look like this season before they made any decision on his contract. And with that, of course, Trae Young didn't play many games this season, only 10 games, 2 of 10, whilst he was in those games for the Atlanta Hawks. And without him, they've been playing very good. 2 of 8. Did I say 2 of 10? 2 of 8 out of the 10 games that they played. And without him, the team has been 18-10. We've seen the rise of Jalen Johnson, Dyson Daniels, and all those boys kind of playing really well together in his absence, which made, I suppose, Trae Young expendable, and him naming the Washington Wizards as one of his preferred spots. So with that, we have the first trade of the season, first major trade of the season. What do you think about the Atlanta Hawks trading a 4-time All-Star in his prime, the assist leader for the season last year, someone who could really help a team? They've traded him away, franchise star, to a team who's at the bottom of the conference, the Washington Wizards. When that trade came about, what did you think? And we just jump straight into this.
Yeah, I just want to say Happy New Year to all the watchers, listeners of our program. Before I get into the Trae Young, I just want to say we're on the road to 2K subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so as soon as possible, we'd like to reach that 2K mark, and then we can get cracking on.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember saying something late last year, Alistair, when we was having a discussion. I said that the loneliest place to be on earth is to be somewhere where you're not wanted. Right?
Yep, I remember that.
That line is very opposite to Trae Young.
Mm-hmm.
Remember watching his press conference, he said that the city can revive me as much as I can revive it.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a man who was not happy with where he was.
Yeah.
He came to a point where he wanted out, he requested a trade, he got that trade.
Yep.
Moving from a team that's 9th now in the standings to a team that's 14th. He didn't matter, he didn't care where they wanted to send him. He just wanted to move from Atlanta,
Just
and
wants
he's
it
now
out.
in the capital. So I think that still works best for both parties involved.
Hmm.
I don't think there's something around Trae Young that doesn't sit well with probably his teammates and guys around the league, meaning whether it's GM, owners, or whatever. Reason why I said that, you can't say Trae Young is selfish. He was the NBA assist leader in 2018. He's the Atlanta Hawks all-time leading assist player
Yep,
with 4,837.
that's it.
You can't say he doesn't score because he's the Hawks all-time leader in three-pointers made, 1,295.
Mhm.
So what is it about Trae Young and his style of play that doesn't sit well with the Atlanta Hawks?
Mhm.
He led them to an Eastern Conference Finals back in 2021, I believe. That year, the Bucks won the title. They were defeated by Bucks in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Mhm.
So what more could Trae Young have done to the city of Atlanta that made them decide that this tenure with him, we'll have to go our separate ways? At Hawks, he wasn't surrounded by superstars.
Mhm.
Tell me one other superstar that Trae Young played with in Atlanta.
None.
I can't tell. I mean, his best second player would probably, in my opinion, would probably be Clint Capella during his time
Or
at the Atlanta.
or John Collins possibly.
John Collins, there you go.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was very thin in regards to the talent pool that surrounded Trae Young. And I think that he maximized everything within his power during his time at Atlanta Hawks. There's nothing more he could have done with the talent that surrounded him during his time at the Atlanta Hawks. And I think it will work best for both teams involved, with both parties involved, sorry. Trae Young now can breathe new life into the Washington Wizards, as he said, and the Atlanta Hawks can move on from him. So I think it will work best for both. How soon will this new marriage work? I'm not sure. I mean, currently 10-27, the Washington Wizards, the 14th in the Eastern Conference, the fourth worst record to date. The league. That's behind the Pacers 7-31, the Kings 8-30, Pelicans 9-31. So we're not looking at immediate glory for Trae Young in Washington Wizards. Probably the next 3-4 seasons, who can tell? But I think that it would work best for both parties, as I said before, and just time will tell no one what will happen with him at the Washington Wizards and how well he can propel that team, how far he can push that team, and see where they'll go in the NBA.
Absolutely. I think everything you said, you hit the nail right on the head with him. And like I said in my little summary in the start, a four-time All-Star franchise, leader for the Atlanta Hawks, as you mentioned, in 3 pointers and assists, and a guy who was pretty dominant in his career with Atlanta in terms of possession of the ball and what he was able to do with that ball whilst he was there. And of course, you see what he was able to do. This is a guy who accounts for, I think it was said somewhere in one of the stats I have here, he accounted for like almost 48% of the team's scoring based on his assists. Yes, scored and assisted on 48.1, not percent, points in his career with the Atlanta Hawks, which is only behind, very ironically, Luka Doncic, who was accounted for 48.9 points, scored or assisted for his team, which is the best in NBA history. NBA history, so he accounts for the scoring he does, and of course how good he makes his teammates. Now, this is a guy with that, of course, you need the ball in your hands a lot. And he accounted for 49% of the Hawks' possessions whilst he was there with the team. That means, of course, you're moving the ball dominant guy to a team over in the Washington Wizards, who are now in a situation where, yes, they traded CJ McCollum, who was the primary ball handler for that team. But now you're taking away some opportunities from those developmental guys coming up on that team. But of course, it's for the better. This is the best point guard the Washington Wizards have had since John Wall. And that takes us back.
Yeah.
Takes us back. John Wall, and then Russell Westbrook.
The best since John Wall.
There for a little bit, for one season. if you want to remind that, I think we're talking about longevity, I suppose. Russell Westbrook, of course, had a triple-double season with the Washington Wizards. So yeah, good call out there. But in terms of longevity, a person who had been there for a significant amount of seasons, John Wall would have been the next guy you would think about, and even before that, you go into Gilbert Arenas maybe. So this is a guy who's coming in and, like he says, wanting to revive, his career and hopefully revive the franchise as well. And, he mentioned something in his statement. I'm going to read a little bit from his statement that he put on Twitter. Just kind of forwarding on to a little bit where he speaks. He said, bringing a championship to Atlanta was always his goal. However, between the injuries, the setbacks, and the situations that didn't make sense, we never truly got to see our full potential. Now, that line where he says situations that didn't make sense kind of surprised me a little bit. It was for me, he's saying something without saying it there. Was there some things that happened where that he wasn't too happy with trades that had happened? I know when John Collins was traded away from the Hawks and went over to the Jazz, he was not too pleased about that. And maybe there's been some other things that they've kept indoors, which is really good, in-house, that we don't know about, that kind of maybe added to the situations that led to them being disappointing as they have. In 8 seasons, they've only made the playoffs 3 times, got them to the Eastern Conference Finals, like you said, in 2021. But overall, when you think about his time there, it's been a disappointment. After that 2021 run to the Eastern Conference Finals, people thought like, hey, this is a team that's going to be challenging in the East. Let's see what's going to happen with them. And they just kind of fallen off from there. 2 other playoff appearances after that, first round exits, and haven't been too good. So, it's going to be really interesting to see what he does with the Washington Wizards. I think, actually, forget the season. There's nothing that this team could do to kind of even get into the play-in, I don't think. I think this is going to be a situation where he's recovering from injury. He has this I think it's a right quad contusion. It has been said, he has to recover from that. He has to get familiar with his team, and it's going to take a little while till they start to gel. But you know what I like? I really like the tandem of him and Alex Sarr, the center for the Washington Wizards, and these slashes to the rim. You have Bilal Coulibaly, you have Cam Whitmore, you have certain guys on that team that who are tremendous lob threats at the rim and everything. Kaishan George has been playing really good in extended minutes for this team. So they have some little pieces of stuff here that they could work with. And the Washington Wizards are now under the cap quite a bit, and they could kind of just build this team, hopefully. So this is an audition period for the Washington Wizards to try to bring people in potentially, or, try to get people who want to come to Washington. He was the first one people have said who wanted to come to Washington, but maybe with his play, he could bring some eyes to it, and players would probably want to come there. You want to say something?
Yeah, because I was just searching for something and saw that I found it. Last year, remember when the list that came out about the most overrated players in the league?
Oh, yeah.
That list was headed by Tyrese Haliburton. I remember how that went.
Yep.
What happened after that list came out? Rudy Gobert was second on that list.
Mm-hmm.
You know who was third?
Trae Young.
Trae Young.
Yep.
And I just remember I said received 8.9% of the votes. As I said, it's something that I've seen around the league. I don't know if it's his style of play, how he plays the game, meaning by that, or his attitude off the court. There is something about Trae Young that doesn't sit well. And as I said in my opening remarks, there's something about Trae Young, Alistair, that probably rubs people the wrong way. I'm not a big fan of his style. I mean, he's not that flashy on the court. But what do you want when you sign a player? A franchise player, that is. You want all the qualities and attributes of a good or great player on the court. Trae Young has given that. He has given everything there is for a franchise player to the city of Atlanta. So I don't know where it went wrong, and I think it's something that probably be off the court. So I'll just leave it as that. It's something off the court because his style of play, what he produces on the court, is not impressive.
Absolutely. And I think off the court, there's a video he put out just before Christmas time where, you know, as at least in the community, he's been a very well-serving member of the team in the community, doing as much as he can, you know, for, you know, in the NBA Cares program that the NBA has and everything. He did this lovely little thing where he remodeled a little boy, I think his name is Amari, remodeled his room and made it wheelchair accessible, and, you know, restyled it and everything, gave him a bunch of Jordan shoes and everything. So in the community and all the things that they do, I'm sure he's well loved. And his teammates, by all accounts, those who have spoken out, I think Jalen Johnson came out, and there's another player, I can't remember who said, you know, he's been such a great person to, I think it was Onyeka Okonu, when he came into the team, he said, you know, Trae Young texted them, welcomed them to the team, was really forthcoming with, you know, wisdom and advice and everything. So it seems like he's a good teammate. But as you say that, the person who I immediately thought about was Patrick Beverley. During the offseason, there was a little bit of an online spat between them, and Patrick Beverley said it very straight up. He said, you know, players don't want to play with you.
They don't want to play there.
Why?
They don't think he's a good leader. They don't think he's a good teammate. This is not coming from me. This is coming from Joe Blow over here. You know, and I ain't go tell who Joe Blow is, but it's like, come on, man. Trae, you can score all the points you want. You can make all the money you want. You can have all the leading assists you want. You can do all that. If you don't win, that won't matter. If you don't win, when you're retired, they're going to forget your name. Fast, too.
And it's because of the style of play. And as you mentioned, the style of play has been a big thing. Has been a really big thing for me with Trae Young. I have a friend of mine in St. Lucia who always tells me about Atlanta. This year he was like, you know, you got to look out for Atlanta and everything. And I kept on saying, with Trae Young, I don't see them going far. And just as you said, the style of play, I think, is really... it's a difficult thing for someone who dominates the ball 49% of possessions for the Hawks. That's half of your team's possessions, and you're taking quite a lot of early in the shot clock 3-pointers from distance, which takes your team out of rhythm. Now, he made them at a good enough rate. He's considered like, you know, Steph Curry part 2 maybe, or 2.0 in the league. But if you're not hitting at Steph Curry's rate, and you're not allowing your team to win, you're going to cause a lot of players on your team to be very frustrated. Now, I'm not sure if that's what Patrick Beverley was alluding to, but, you know, it played out in the wins and losses. You know, they lost a lot more games than they could with him. And, you know, now it means that the team thought, you know, he was expendable, you know, after being a franchise star for so many years. So I absolutely agree with you. His style of play, and of course, being a guy who I think is 6'1", 6'2", you know, offensively, he raised the ceiling, the floor of the Atlanta Hawks very, very good. I think this season, even in the few games that he's played, he raised the offensive rating of the team from, you know, 121 points per game over 100 possessions. When he's on the court versus when he's off, it's only 114. So he does account for some offensive elevation when he's on the team. But of course, being with that small size, you have rebounding numbers that are down -5. The steal numbers that are down -2, turnovers. He's really good at he's good at keeping the ball. And even this season, his assists, being an assist leader, it was marginal, less than 1 assist a game better with him on the court. So that alone, I think, for the Atlanta Hawks was like, you know what? You know, he's not doing very much for our team, apart from the little offensive elevation. But defensively, he's a liability. He's probably messing with our sets quite a lot offensively because of the shot selection that he takes, and it's time to move on. So this is what we see when players fall out of favor with a franchise. You know, franchises have to think about, you know, value. You know, he's accounting for a max contract, and, you know, that kind of straps the team in probably what they could do moving forward. I'm hearing that Anthony Davis is a trade target, you know, this season and everything as well. So, you know, there's a lot of things that you need to account for. But he's in the place that he wanted to be. Let's see what happens with the Washington Wizards moving forward. I don't think this season is a little bit of a wash, but it's an audition for the team to probably try to get players in. Let's see what happens next year with the draft coming up and off-season trades and everything, and maybe he could elevate them then. But it would be nice to see him get into an offensive flow and a rhythm with his new team, and he could put that chapter behind him. Like he said in his post, it's another opportunity, and it's exactly that for him, where he could, you know, put another chapter into his career and, you know, continue to be an all-star like he has been. So that's it on the trade. of Trae Young, which was really interesting to see how it kind of came about. And the next thing we want to move into here is a topic that we discussed, I think it was in episode 6, where we spoke a little bit about the Celtics for a little bit, for a little while, and that was at in November, towards the end of November, where they were 10-9 at the time. They were 8th or 9th in the East at that time, just above 500. The struggles that we expected from the Celtics were there. And now, where are they right now? They are the 3rd in the East, 24-14, just behind the Knicks and the Detroit Pistons. Jaylen Brown has catapulted himself onto the MVP ladder. And, he's been playing awesome, 50-point game against the Clippers, dismantled that team completely and had some really good offensive outings the last couple of times. What have you seen in this stretch since that last time we spoke about Jaylen Brown to now, where he's now part of the MVP discussion? Quite a lot of people are refocusing or rethinking about what they think about him on this team. He's now a number one, clearly a number one. It's not just Jayson Tatum. What do you think he's been able to do to this point, and how do you see them moving forward, potentially with Jayson Tatum coming back as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's not really surprising to me what Jaylen Brown is doing. This guy is a former NBA Finals MVP.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? He knows what it takes to deliver on the biggest set. Now, Jaylen Brown, ever since, this is the time of year when you separate the good players from the, I don't want to say great. Jaylen Brown is not a great yet, but the good from the average. Yeah? The good from the average players. The November, December, January, February window thereabout, those good players, you start to see them emerging. Creme de la creme, cream of the crop will start to rise. Since Christmas, this is what Jaylen Brown has done. 30 points versus the Pacers on Boxing Day. 37 versus Trailblazers on December 28th. 23 versus the Jazz on 30th of December. To start the year, 29 versus the Kings. 50 against the Clippers, as you mentioned. That was on the 3rd of January.
Mm-hmm.
January 5th, 14 against the Bulls. Off minute. 33 against the Nuggets on the 7th of January. 25 against the Raptors on the 9th of January. And 27 points versus the Spurs in a defeat last night. This guy has been on a tear since Christmas. This is the time of the season when the good players start to emerge. And Jaylen Brown is starting to flex his muscle at the right time for the Boston Celtics. They will be a force to be reckoned with as we go on in the season. And I think his game will elevate even more from 31.2 points per game now as the regular season progresses. And after the All-Star weekend, we'll see Jaylen Brown starting to get in that playoff mindset as he goes on to lead this team in the absence of Jayson Tatum. So Jaylen Brown is doing what I expected him to do, and I think it will continue as he continues to lead the Boston Celtics.
You were very prophetic when we spoke about it initially. You said, I think, this team could be, despite where they started, that 10-9 when we were speaking about, you said this team could be a 3rd or 4th seed.
I still see the Celtics as a 4th, 5th seed in the East based on how things are shaping up. So I think if he comes back, the team gets healthy, they can still be a force to reckon with over there.
Like you say, it's still really early on in the season. I actually find it really interesting you say that they could still probably be a 4th or 5th seed even without him to end the season. Is that what you were saying about 4th to 5th seed? Okay, so that's the season continuing on. You expect things to level out and, the championship metal kind of taking them back up where they need to be. And that would be interesting if that actually plays out. I think, Jaylen Brown could keep them at that level. And you're absolutely right on that. I was a little bit hesitant on that regard because I thought there would be offensive limitations from him. I didn't see a 30-point per game scorer at all. I did not see that coming. But to in my defense, nobody saw that coming. I think even Paul Pierce in a podcast he appeared on, he said, I totally have to rethink what this team is now because Jaylen Brown is no longer just a number 2, a Robin to a Batman in Tatum. This is a guy who has clearly shown he could run a team as a number 1. So this catapulting himself into the MVP conversation. You have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jayson Tatum, and Jaylen Brown right there at the back, and Cade Cunningham, basically the top 4 guys in the MVP conversation. absolutely deserve it at the moment. And Jaylen Brown has just put himself in there. From that point when we spoke about it on November 30th, they were 10-9, like I said. Since then, they've gone 14-5, and he's averaging 29.9 points per game, 6.5 rebounds, 5.2 rebounds, shooting 50% from the floor, well, 49, and 36% from free. You call out some really good numbers there, and I also call out some ones that I think are really good to mention. 41 against the Minnesota Timberwolves. That was a loss, but the 41 output is really good. They won against the New York Knicks. 42 points production there as well. This is another team that is vying for the East crown. He showed them that you guys, I'm putting you on notice. I am here and I could still lead this team. 37 against Portland. These are just 3 games that I called out. And it just shows that this guy, like I said, 30 he is a 30-point per game scorer in this league. And then he had a little bit of a disappointing outing against the Spurs last night, where he had 27 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, 5 turnovers, 11 of 28 from the field. And he was very adamant, very, vocal about the officiating of that game, where the Spurs shot 23 throws and the Boston Celtics scored or shot only 4 free throws in that game. Now, the fact that he was very vocal is what I want to point out here, because you know who normally is very vocal about the officiating? The superstars of the teams. The guys who have, every reason to believe that I should get calls when I get to the rim. And, he said it, I don't flop. I go to the basket. I play hard. I shot 28 times in this game, and I only got and I didn't shoot any free throws at all. Our team only shot 4 free throws. Something is wrong. So this is him stepping into that spotlight of someone who now believes he deserves the superstar calls. And just like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander gets and everything, and he believes mentally and is very confident. I think he said in another appearance that he said, "I am the best two-way player in this game right now." And he's staking his claim as being that someone who could defend and play offensively on both sides of the court. Elevating them to the 3rd seed was a surprise for me. Like I said, there are people who still believe and are really a lot of people saying that, Jayson Tatum could come back in March. There's one guy specifically, although it was for fantasy basketball, he was speaking from a fantasy basketball perspective, and he said, imagine Jayson Tatum coming back, playing at least 25 minutes a game, giving you at least 18.6 rebounds and 2 3-pointers a game. Imagine adding Jayson Tatum onto what Jaylen Brown is doing right now. This team could get to the finals. This is what this guy said. He's a fantasy expert. He said they could get to the finals. Now, to me, that's a bit of a stretch, but this is the confidence that Jaylen Brown's play has brought into people analyzing the game. And it's yet to be seen how that works out. Jayson Tatum might even not play this season. Maybe, they take the rest of the season off so he could fully recover. But he's made it very clear he's training as hard as he has for him to return. So we have no idea what's going to happen. But Jayson Tatum and this version of Jaylen Brown is a very scary prospect for the East moving forward.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Very, 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 very scary prospect. So so this is something we definitely wanted to call out. I know we spoke about it before, but it's just, let's do a little bit of a hypothetical here. Thinking about Jayson Tatum not returning and where they are in the East right now, right? I'm going to call out a few teams for you. Do you think this Celtics with Jaylen Brown as he playing right now, do you think he could beat these teams? Yes or no response in a 7-game series. Do you think they could be the New York Knicks in a 7-game series? No. All right. So I had that as I thought that. Do you think they could beat the Raptors?
Yes.
7 games. Okay. 76ers.
Depending on the availability of Joel
Embiid. Yep, exactly. Cleveland.
That would be a 7-game series, double overtime in game 7. Boston Celtics win buzzer beater Jaylen.
Thriller basically. All right. Orlando.
Yeah.
Yes. And Atlanta. With the trade now happening.
Yeah. Easy. Atlanta, yeah. blow past Atlanta.
You think they'll blow past Atlanta? Okay, so that's a really good set of confidence that we have in that team. But we think, there's some teams that, they'll do some they'll struggle with a little bit without Jayson Tatum in there. And I think that just sets the path for what we should expect for that team moving forward. It's yet to be seen. He's doing really good, but there's still some bits missing. And it's going to come back to what I said in the last episode, where I said, not the last episode, episode 6, where I said this team is great. What he's showing right now and what he's been able to do, it's been remarkable. But they still need Jayson Tatum to kind of close some gaps, some offensive gaps, and be the filler for what Jaylen Brown might not be able to do on his own. To be able to compete in the East, Jayson Tatum needs to be on that team. And to have two guys who are number ones like that, who could give you 30 points per night, once healthy for Jayson Tatum, who could give you 30 at any point in time, at any night, it will be really important for the Celtics moving forward. So this is it. This is the first segment of Baseline to Baseline, episode 9. Returning for 2026. We had these little conversations here about the Atlanta trade and, of course, the Boston Celtics. We're going to come right back with you, where we're going to discuss a little bit for a few minutes the Ja Morant situation. Again, we're speaking about Ja Morant again. The team has now put him on the trading block. And also, we're going to kind of do a little bit of a review of the All-Star selection so far. The second returns have been out. We're coming up to the third. And we want to just review where we were in terms of the selections that we made. So stay with us. Segment 2 coming right back with you, Alistair and Orane, Baseline to Baseline. Get us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere. Gonna come back right back to you really soon. All right, welcome back to segment 2 of episode 9 of Baseline to Baseline with Alistair and Orane. Hope you stayed with us for the first bit of it, where we discussed, the Trae Young trade to the Washington Wizards, and we had a little bit of a discussion about the Boston Celtics so far and what they've been doing. That was really interesting first half for us. Discussing, teams that would be really interesting to see what happens throughout the rest of the season, especially the Atlanta Hawks moving forward to CJ McCollum. And then, of course, the Boston Celtics, what they've been doing with Jaylen Brown has been nothing short but of amazing, and with the potential of Jayson Tatum coming back, what that's potentially could be. The next, and before I even get to the next topic that we want to discuss in segment 2, one thing I want to do, I think it would be really nice, as I remember it here right now on the spot. We worked with a colleague, Donald Oliver, who was with Sportsmax, one of the main guys, one of the anchors for the program, the sports segments. I got to know over the last couple of days that he passed away. I was really shocked by that. I know you worked with him as well in studio. Yeah. I never met him, of course. I haven't been to Jamaica as yet. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like to work with Donald? Because, that really caught me by surprise, and I definitely wanted to pay some respects to someone.
Donald was, humble human being. One of the best in the country at what he did. Right. The best, one of the best producers, the best, they have him as the best football commentator. Actually, Donald is more than just a friend. Donald and my brother, my older brother, Coral Shannon, are best friends. Right. So that's how I knew Donald. We worked with him because the first set of basketball raps that I did for television, Donald and I did it.
Right.
All the raps. So my introduction into sports media was through Donald getting how you write things, how you voice it, project your voice and put it on screen. That was through Donald. So
right.
It came to all of us. But the good thing, if there's any good in this, is that his name will always be mentioned when you talk about sports in Jamaica. You can't mention sports in the country and not put his name in that. So that just tells the man who he was. And we just want to say, condolences to his family, his friends, and he did well. He did well while he was on earth for his short time. So RIP to Donald Oliver, and just have to keep the work going, friend.
Definitely. I've been on screen with him for about maybe three or four segments coming on to talk basketball, and his energy was really apparent. One of the guys, I enjoyed talking with everyone on set for sure, all the guys. But George always stood out to me, because he was the one I first interacted with. And then when George left, I think Donald came on for a little bit before Ricardo, I think, really kicked off into one of the lead roles. And Donald and I had some really good laughs on screen the few times that we interacted. So yeah, it was really a shock to hear that he passed away, and I think you articulated everything that needs to be said about it, about him, being closer to him, and everything. So yeah, definitely condolences to his family. I thought it really important to say that because we both kind of worked with him, me from a distance, and by all accounts, he was a really good guy, and a pleasure to be around, even from a distance as well. So RIP, and let's say this segment 2 of this episode dedicated to him, because like you say, I'm sure he touched quite a lot of people in Jamaica and across the region, for his coverage of sports as we move on. So that was that. I thought I just wanted to do that really quickly. And also, like we said, moving on into segment 2 of what we're doing here right now, Ja Morant. We started off the season where you were very bullish on him. You thought he could be in the MVP conversation. We said we wanted to look out for him and what he could do for this Memphis Grizzlies team. I think that was you putting, this pressure because you saw the talent and what he could do for that team. It wasn't any sort of expectation that was outlandish because we saw how he could elevate that team. And with the trade of Desmond Bane and, Dylan Brooks moving on and everything, you wanted to see him take that leadership spot even more seriously and bring the Memphis Grizzlies into contention. But here we go again, a season where it feels like there's disappointment attached to his name. Of course, he was suspended for one game, with the little incident that he had with his coach. He's been injured quite a lot. He's on my fantasy team, and I'm missing out on quite a lot of production for Ja Morant, and I don't like it. So I could see what the Memphis franchise and maybe the fans themselves feel in terms of frustration with Ja Morant this season. It's come up now that the team is entertaining talks of potentially trading him before the trade deadline on February 5th. And we spoke about this, I think, in episode 3, where we said, there are some destinations we'd love to see him at. To just remind people, and I'll put up the little images that I created for that. You had mentioned the Rockets, the Kings, and potentially the Bulls as good landing spots for him. And I said the Rockets, the Bucks, and the Wolves. Thinking about a potential trade destination for Ja Morant is one thing, but what do you think just overall about what the situation is for him, and do you think he could ever regain some of that respect in the league for being such a dynamic superstar coming into a team? Do you think on another team he could be that same person and be as impactful or even more onto a new team, any of those teams that we mentioned or anywhere that he goes? What do you see the outlook is for Ja Morant moving on to another team potentially?
I mean, it's easy. Ja Morant is not happy where he is at the moment because of obvious reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, new coach has come in, his style of play is different. 12 doesn't have the ball in his hands as much as before. The side pieces have left. So I just think that he's unhappy with the pieces that he has around him and the team is playing, along with not having the ball in his hands again. I mean, it's life. I mean, sometimes you're in an environment, whether you go out for dinner or whatever, and it's just that the atmosphere or who you have around you, whether it's you bring a friend and that friend bring a friend, and you just don't feel the same energy, and you just want to leave. I just think that's the situation here with Ja Morant in Memphis, and he just needs a different city. I think a different city will do him fine. I mean, he just needs to get back his joy. We saw it with Kevin Durant at Phoenix Suns. Kevin Durant wasn't happy and no longer happy playing the game of basketball.
Yep.
Boom. One move. Phoenix, Houston, Kevin Durant gets back his joy. We see what Kevin Durant can do again in the league. So let's not act as if Ja Morant now is some role playing. No, this guy is a superstar. 12 is a superstar. I just think that a change of environment now will get back 12 on his feet and show the world what he really can do. So I just think that's what's working against him. And I think sooner rather than later, he'll be happy again and we'll see the high flying 12 in the league.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's a really good positive hope and wish for him. And I think that's what everybody wants to see. I think from the time this guy came into the league, we saw some of the verbal, back and forth with the Warriors on the court, him and Dylan Brooks and these guys kind of going at Draymond Green, and trying to upset the apple cart in terms of respecting the people who need to be revered in the league. And they were here and they were ready for all the smoke and everything. And we come to this season where it's just been like, this is a guy that just looks sad. He doesn't look engaged. He doesn't look as, he plays with the same level of intensity, but it just feels like something is missing. And I think from the time that those trades happened, Desmond Bain going to Orlando, Dylan Brooks, who I think was a little bit of an enabler for some of the behavior of Ja Morant. I wouldn't really say off the court. We don't know what happens there, but on the court you could see that aggression and some of that swagger that Dylan Brooks brought to that team, leeching off onto Ja Morant, who has that on his own. But having those teammates around, just boosted his confidence and made him feel like the bigger 7 foot tall rather than the 6 foot whatever he is. And it's really sad.
This league doesn't want to see Ja Morant on that Houston Rockets team. Veteran presence with Kevin Durant. I said this league doesn't want to see Ja Morant on a Houston Rockets.
Yeah, that would be
veteran
presence crazy.
Kevin Durant. Those young guys around Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
You throw 12 in that mix.
Into that mix. And that was the team.
Here against Houston, we have a problem.
Oh, we have a massive problem. And that was a team we were both very we locked in on as a potential place for him. Trading away Fred VanVleet. He's out for this season, and bringing in Ja Morant at a time when this window is open for the Rockets to make some noise, and bringing in Ja Morant, with Ime Udoka coaching these guys really hard. This is a situation when I chose the Rockets as a potential destination for Ja Morant. When we spoke about it, I said coaching is going to be very important here in terms of having the veteran leadership, which I think he needs, which he didn't have when he was with Memphis. Coaching will be very important. And Ime Udoka is a no-nonsense guy. He came out a couple of days ago and he said, the team was weak. He wasn't too happy about how they played, losing a game, having to rely on a 37-year-old Kevin Durant. And, as soon as he get off the floor, he went on an 11-0 spiral. And he was really disappointed in his team. And this is a guy who looks like he coaches his team hard. The other team I thought that would be really good, and I think is from a player perspective, I thought him with Giannis could be amazing as well. I have a little bit of concerns about shooting around them, but him and Giannis playing together and Giannis being at him, as a teammate, I think that would be tremendous for his growth in the league as well. And the Wolves, like I mentioned also, I think him with Anthony Edwards and Chris Finch as a coach, as a leader, would be really good for him as well. I think something came out as well today, and this was one of the destinations that we spoke about at in episode 3 as well, was the Miami Heat sniffing around, and they think they have the structure to probably help him settle into a really good place in his career. And I think as an organization and a franchise, Eric Spoelstra, Alonzo Mourning, Udonis Haslem, Pat Riley, these people around that franchise, really keen in on Ja Morant would be really good for him as well. The Miami nightlife and everything is another thing. I don't know how he's going to deal with that. We saw what happened in Memphis. What happens when he gets to club live in Miami and all the other places would be a totally different thing. But with that system and the structure, it would be awesome if he could go there as well. So, like you said, this is a superstar. He has one of the hottest shoes on the market, the Ja 3s. Everybody loves that shoe. And I think that kind of exemplifies, his perception within the public realm. Commercially, he's a superstar. He plays like a superstar and he carries himself like a superstar on the court. And it's disappointing to see what's happened with him this season. And it now looks like he's going to be traded from a team that he had everything basically laid out for him. So let's see what happens. Hopefully he could revive his career, similar to what Trae Young said. I needed a place that I could help revive, and I needed to revive my career. And maybe that's the situation for Ja Morant as well. So let's see what happens. But yeah, he's onto a space now where it'll be really good. The team without him were 10-9, and with him was 6-12. So the team was just not performing with him anymore. And now it's an opportunity for those young guards, Cedric Coward and Jalen Wells and Cam Spencer, to step up and probably take a lot more ownership and usage within that team alongside Jaren Jackson. So they build around that core and see what happens there. But Ja Morant, it's a shame. What's happened to him. Memphis has lost a superstar. Who knows when the next superstar will arrive in Memphis? But I think maybe it's time for them to part ways. And we mentioned these teams, and a lot of teams, of course, are going to be surveying the landscape to see what happens. The Memphis Grizzlies have said, however, they are going to prioritize draft picks and young players as preference in return for him. So don't expect a superstar with a name in the league to go back to Memphis. They're prioritizing the future, and that's what is going to be moving forward. And the last thing we want to talk about here for the end of this episode, we did a fun little exercise in episode 7 where we did our all-stars so far for that time of the season. We were a quarter way in, and now we're into the point where the list is getting solidified. We're starting to see a lot of movement as to which guys are really making headway so far in the headlines. And we had our all-stars that we presented to our viewers, gotten a lot of traction on Twitter and TikTok specifically in terms of some of the choices that we've made. And it's been really good to see what that looks like right now. Follow and subscribe. Like Orane said, we're approaching 2,000, and we'd like you guys to come in and continue to join what we're doing. And it's really interesting. So I sent you the all-star returns. And so far in the West, based on what the returns are, of course, it's the first 12 players in each conference that will be chosen. And so far it seems like there are 2 that are a little bit off from our list. Jamal Murray is not in the running. It seems like he's 15th on the list, and Dylan Brooks didn't even make the cut in terms of the all-star returns, the second ballot returns that came in. And in the East, there were 4 that were not named not that they were not named, but they were not in the top 12. Jalen Duren, Norman Powell, Franz Wagner, and Scotty Barnes, which was really surprising to me. What do you think so far from the list, from the returns, the second returns that have come in from the NBA? And there's some people in there that are making it, making some headway. We have LeBron James, who is 8th in the West, and we know that number is going to continue climbing, into the third returns. We have James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, Cooper Flagg getting in on these returns. And in the East, we have Jalen Johnson, Michael Porter Jr., Siakam, LaMelo Ball. These are the guys who are being named as all-stars, or people who would like to see all-stars in these returns. Did anything surprise you from what you saw in those second returns, and who do you think will make the cut when that time comes?
No surprise there. I mean, this is the time of the season now, as I said before, that things start to take real shape.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the top 5: Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic, Steph Curry, SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Victor Wembanyama. The top 5 in the West. The East: Giannis Antetokounmpo, Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Maxey, Cade Cunningham, Donovan Mitchell rounds out the top 5 in the East.
Yeah.
It looks just about right just now for me. As we go further and closer to February, I think it will show more of what two of us have had leading up to this point. So it wouldn't be any surprise. The surprise package, though, if there was any, Dylan Brooks. I think Dylan Brooks has done enough thus far to be called an all-star. This guy has left Memphis, where he was slowly becoming scapegoat in Memphis. His attitude, his behavior. I mean, he's the one that's causing the Memphis Grizzlies to lose and things around that. He has taken that same attitude, that same behavior to the Phoenix Suns, and look at what he's doing at the Phoenix Suns. Dylan Brooks is not a superstar. He's a very good role player in my eyes.
That's
But
it.
sometimes the environment that you're in, being comfortable with the guys around, can propel you to higher heights, and that is what Phoenix have done with Dylan Brooks. Dylan Brooks is very much comfortable playing the game of basketball yet again, and we've seen what he's doing there in Phoenix. He has done enough in my eyes to be an all-star this season, and only time will tell if he will get that call. But I think Dylan Brooks is more than deserving of being an all-star this year.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm just trying to pull up his stats right here, but you know, the Suns are 7th in the West right now, and you know, on the back of his outstanding offensive play, you know, averaging 21.3 points per game. You know, last season he averaged 14 points per game for the Houston Rockets, and you know, his career high before that was 18 points again. So he's upped his offensive production in this team. And when he was traded to the Phoenix Suns, I thought he would be the third option behind Devin Booker and Jalen Green. Now Jalen Green has been out because of some injury that he has, but I think it's perfect because I don't think Jalen Green was going to be the best number 2 option for the Phoenix Suns. That's not to say that I think Dylan Brooks is the best number 2 option, but what he's shown is he could carry an offensive burden away from Devin Booker, and when you add Jalen Green onto that as well, you have a 3-guard lineup at the top there that you become very difficult to guard. An athletic guy like Jalen Green who's a lob threat anytime he's on the court, and then you have, you know, these guys who could score from anywhere, as it looks like. Yep.
And Dylan Brooks does when Jalen Green returns, Dylan Brooks doesn't have to be that offensive guy for the Phoenix Suns. That's not his game.
Exactly.
Dylan Brooks is a raw enforcer. He could be the Draymond Green of the Phoenix Suns.
Exactly.
That's his role.
Exactly.
That's the role. So when Jalen Green comes back, he can just give him the keys to the offense again.
That's it. That's it.
In my opinion, should take if he wants to propel this team further. Be the third option on the offensive end, the number 1 leader on the defensive end, and lead this team further in the Western Conference.
That's the point I wanted to make. I think he could go back to just concentrating on that defense, but at least, you know, once you give him the ball, he could score at the end of the shot clock. You know, he's another option there on the court. But whatever, you know, role he settles into, I'm not sure what the situation with Jalen Green is and when he'll be back. You know, he played a couple of games and then he got injured again. But you know, the Phoenix Suns, you know, Matt Ishbia came, he tried to make a splash with Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal. That didn't work. But this team, I think, is where you know they should be starting to build from. I think that hope with Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal was just too crazy a move. I think this is a really good space for the Phoenix Suns right now, and they could build on that. And Dylan Brooks has kind of really definitely catapulted himself into the All-Star talk. I'm really surprised he hasn't come up on the second ballot returns of the All-Star ballot. But let's see what happens in the third. And I'm sure the coaches will do the right thing and make sure he is in. Also, with Jamal Murray, I don't think Jamal Murray should be snubbed from this All-Star team this year. I'd be very disappointed if he is. And with, you know, Nikola Jokic being out, you know, he's tried to continue to carry the team, and he's been excellent with him as well. So we have guys like LeBron, Harden, and Kawhi right now, you know, overtaking, you know, Brooks and Jamal in the West. But let's see what happens, because it's going to be really interesting to see what you know, who actually makes the team moving forward. And then we have in the East, like we said, really surprised at the one thing I will confess, I had Franz Wagner up there, and that was off the strength of when he was playing before the injury. I thought he was doing really good. Paolo Banchero was out, and he was playing very consistent for the Orlando Magic and was keeping them afloat. And then he got injured, and then we just started to see triple-double almost every night from Jalen Johnson. And I was like, you know what? I need to make a concession here or make a change. And Franz Wagner needs to be removed, because how he has played with and without Trae Young, bringing the Atlanta Hawks to where they are right now, he deserves that spot. But Jalen Duren, for a guy who's on the team who's the first in the East right now, who I think could get to the NBA Finals like I predicted. I think he should be on that team. Scotty Barnes, I need to kind of maybe keep a closer eye on him, but I was really surprised that he wasn't in the returns. But of course, this is a fan vote. And people want to see guys like LaMelo Ball in and MPJ, who has been playing awesome, to be totally fair. If Scotty Barnes didn't make the team and Michael Porter Jr. made it, I would not be disappointed with that at all, because he's now a trade target for contenders who think he could be the missing piece, because he's showing how good he is offensively with the Nets right now. Pascal Siakam, of course, on the cellar-dwelling Pacers right now, but people are recognizing how good he's been playing. And LaMelo Ball, who's always exciting, these one-legged three-pointers and passes and lob. He's built for the All-Star game, but of course the team is not doing great right now. But let's see what happens. So this was our All-Star review up to this point. We'll see what happens when the TNT and not TNT, ESPN announces TNT and the NBA is no more. But when ESPN announces the starters and then the reserves the week after, we'll see, how this list lays out for us. But this is the end of episode 9. I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Orane, as usual, thank you for being available for this one. And we move on into episode 10. We're approaching double digits in our episodes, and we're going to have someone who is revered within the NBA, commentary, analysis space. I'm going to leave that out right now as to who it will be. You would see who that is when we do that episode next week. But keep a close watch, subscribe, like, follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all over the place. That we're all the different platforms that we're on. You're not going to want to miss next week. You're not going to want to miss this episode right now. But also next week we have someone very special joining us, and more people who we think you're going to enjoy having on as well. So thank you, Orane, for jumping in on this another episode recorded. This one is done. And we look forward to episode 10, where we bring you this special guest, like I said. So thank you, viewers, and we shall see you next time. Orane, catch up later.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. From the hardwood floor to the spotlight glow, breaking down the stats every fan should know. Trace, place, legends in the making. Every headline, no mistaking. Fast breaks, crossovers, highlight reels. What's real strategy, what's hype and feels. East to west, we call it straight. From draft night buzz to finals fade. Baseline to baseline, we cover it all. Big plays, bold takes, the rise and the fall. Baseline to baseline, where passion is prime. Your